to welcome some great shows to Ledge Amphitheater this year. John Mulaney will be there August 22nd. Blues Traveler and Gin Blossoms will be there September 12th. You can get complete details on all of our upcoming shows on the concert page, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
All right, 404 on the Bumper to Bumper program. Dave Sinekin in for Bump today. Blake Moore in Guardsy's chair. Appreciate Guardsy joining last segment. We'll have Britt Robson in about a half hour to talk Minnesota Lynx and a little NBA stuff, and a Lavelle E. Neal III at 5:30. We'll round out the guest list, but guest number 2, kind enough to join us right now on a big day in Eagan as veterans report. Vikings training camp is underway, and we welcome in Alec Lewis, who covers the Purple for The Athletic and a contributor to this show throughout the day. Alec, good to talk to you. How you been?
I'm good, Dave. It's good to be on the show. It's been a little bit of a journey of a Tuesday morning and afternoon, but left the TCO Performance Center not too long ago, and we'll be back tomorrow and the next day and until the end of time, it feels like.
What is it like for you? The very first, maybe you've been there the last few days, I don't know, but the first day where there's a whole lot of athletes there, the team is in place, does it sort of hit you like, all right, here we go, the grind begins, or have you been doing this long enough where you kind of realize it never really ends?
I think it's a combination of, I definitely know the latter in that to expect quiet and peace while covering this league and this team would probably be false. But there's no doubt that for me, there is an excitement factor of being back around the people that whether they're competitors or colleagues or whatever you want to call it. First and foremost, you spend a lot of time with them and always enjoy that part of it. And then to be back around the team, we'll see them out on the field tomorrow and get to watch ball. And you know this, we've talked about this before. At my core, I am just a kid of a sports fan who is really grateful for the opportunity I have to be around this stuff every day. So it's a mix of all of it. And when you start last night after dinner with Jamal Adams signing, and then you got the defensive backs coach convicted for a DWI, and then you got Brian O'Neill's extension. It's a fast and furious start.
Yeah, and we'll get to all of that, but I want to start with the story you wrote a little bit ago on former equipment manager Dennis Ryan. I really enjoyed it because I had no idea who he was, as a guy that doesn't follow the Purple as closely. That was just so illuminating of what he meant, not just to the organization, but the way you described the individual players and what he meant to them. The John Randall story, the way you closed it was amazing. I just want to get some quick thoughts on what it was like for you to investigate that story, learn more about him, and maybe what caused you to write it. Maybe you were sort of tipped off that this would make a great story, because I really, really enjoyed reading about Dennis.
No, that's awesome. And for those listening and they haven't read it, Dennis Ryan was the Vikings equipment manager for 47 years. And he retired. My first year on the beat was 2022. I believe he retired in 2023. And then last spring, the spring of 25, the Hall of Fame honored him with an award of excellence. And at the time, I think coming off with all the quarterback mayhem, the thing I love to do most is just tell stories about people. So I try to find as many of those as I can. Yeah. And there was just kind of a trigger for me of this guy's being honored. What did he really do on a daily basis? So beginning then, I just started reaching out to a bunch of former Vikings players and people, and with the help, honestly, of Bob Hagan and Tom West, who have been with the team forever. They were awesome in terms of steering me a certain way. And yeah, it's just, I said it, but anytime you can highlight someone behind the scenes who helps make this machine that we all watch and we all love, who makes it go that you never really know about, I just take, I just have so much respect for those people. You don't get to write about them a lot, but I see the work every day, and I think sometimes it's probably important to kind of spotlight it for others too.
Yeah, and it sounds like Dennis Ryan's the last guy who would want you to write an article about Dennis Ryan, right?
That is absolutely correct. And I sometimes when you're doing these stories, You tell people you're doing it. Sometimes when you're doing these stories, you're like, if I tell them, maybe they're not going to be okay with it. So you do your best to just try to make them smile at the end of the day. So yeah, it was, again, like it was also for me, and I say that like no one probably cares about my process, but I knew that the quarterback conversation is going to dominate this thing on the radio, in writing, on podcasts, everywhere over the next few weeks. And so there was a part of me that was like, I need to cleanse myself of this and do something real for a second. And so that was also some of the intent.
Yeah, it didn't take you long to jump right back into the quarterback conversation because that's your most current piece. There's a story on Kyler Murray and why the fit here with this organization is inspiring optimism is, I think, how you put it. Why don't you explain to the audience what you learned around the league as you cultivated your sources and talked to people from Arizona and other places, the people that know Kyler well. Why is his fit here inspiring optimism from outside this organization besides within it?
Yeah, I would say this. So, I mean, I've done this not forever, but I've done it long enough to have an exposure to certain stories and and reporting processes. And I will say, like, once the Vikings signed Kyler this spring, I made it somewhat of a mission to, like, I'm going to talk. There's a lot of narratives about this guy. You bring up his name and people think, like, very precise things, whether it's his size, whether it's the Call of Duty stuff, whether it's the study clause in his contract. So for me, it's like I need to do my job to represent what the truth is of who he is, what he's about. And so I reached out to a ton of different people. And yeah, I've heard a lot of different things, some of them positive, some of them, some people who don't really want to talk through some of the history. I mean, I've really run the gamut of everything, but the one, I'd say, through line of every conversation that I had over the last few months was that people are really optimistic that this fit at this time for him in his career and where the Vikings are at, could be really productive. And I think the reason for that is not the obvious, like you have Justin Jefferson and you have Jordan Addison. I think more than anything is you have an organization with expectations and a proven track record of knowing what it's like to really hold guys accountable, to have a certain standard. And I think people felt like that would be really good for Kyler Murray at this stage and where he's at in his career. And so whether that comes to fruition over the next couple of weeks and into the season, we will all find out. But it did make an impression on me that belief and opinion was shared by as many of the people, former teammates, former coaches, executives, people I talked to.
Do you get a sense that a formal decision is going to be announced somewhat soon so that he does get the majority, if not all, the first-team reps for as much of training camp as possible? This is a guy that has been in shotgun most of his career. Now he might be asked to be under center more. I mean, his style of play is going to have to change, I think, as you wrote. Like, he's been a scrambling guy. He tends to get injured. Maybe he'll have more less health issues if he's under center, staying in the pocket. Do you get a sense that this organization will decide soon, or do you really have no idea when a decision one way or the other is going to be made?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this already, and I mean, it's just my inclination to believe that the Vikings would like to have a decision made around that joint practices time with the Baltimore Ravens, which I believe begins August 19th. So, I mean, that's the starting point for me, and you could go both ways from there. Would would the people internally like to have a decision well before that so that the starter or projected starter can get all the reps or most of the reps in those joint practices? Like, that would make sense to me. Or if they don't feel like they have a comprehensive evaluation complete, perhaps they use some of those joint practices as a way to finalize some of their approach. But I wrote about this for tomorrow. Like, I think the most interesting, besides the adaptation from Kyler's play style and Kevin O'Connell's system, the most interesting part of this for me is the push-pull between trying to make the right call in terms of who's starting and making the call with enough time to be able to ensure that the offense comes together in a way that it didn't last year and it hasn't probably in some of the previous years. So can you make the correct evaluation in an amount of time that then allows this player get enough reps with the offense a rhythm and timing-based offense to ultimately feel confident going into week one against a team that you might be familiar with.
Yeah, I do. I am 47 days away. Am I crazy to be as interested in who wins the job as to what the pecking order is, 1, 2, 3 on the depth chart when the season starts? I mean, if Carson Wentz is named the backup, that changes everything about the perception of J.J. McCarthy. In your mind, is 1, 2, 3 completely up for grabs right now?
I would say, I mean, just talking right now, I mean, my expectation would be that the two competing for the starting job, the person who doesn't win that, unless, circumstances dictate that it was so drastically concerning, I'd say like that person would slot in as the backup. But then I go down the road, okay, like that's for right now. What happens in week 6 if the team is 4-2? Would the team and all quarterbacks are still on the roster? Like, would the team have confidence in a more veteran player if it's Kyler Murray who was the original starter? Like, I think it's just so circumstantial in that way to where I get the question, and I do think you are very right to be curious about the pecking order. It's hard for me to answer definitively, not knowing the circumstances of when the backup might be necessary. But I think it also is a really important conversation because durability should be one of the top line conversations, whether it's Kyler Murray, whether it's J.J. McCarthy, whether it's Carson Wentz. I pulled this up today since Kevin O'Connell got here in 2022, the Vikings quarterbacks have been hit 516 times. And that is the most in the NFL by like 20. And so if that is sustained this year, regardless of who ends up winning the starting job, I think talking about who's behind them is going to be a relevant conversation.
Yeah, I'm thinking Joe Burrow is shocked to hear that he doesn't lead the league with that number. I guess he's missed too many games. You mentioned durability. That's been a problem for Jamal Adams since he was traded from the Jets to Seattle. His tenure there was not great. This front office knows him well. They bring him over to Minnesota last night. What do you sense Brian Flores and that defensive staff expects to get out of Jamal Adams, adding him to their defense?
Yeah, I mean, you can understand the fit pretty clearly in that here's a versatile player who has blitzing ability, who plays with violence, and who has experience in the NFL. I mean, those are, like, if you are to power rank what this defensive staff and Brian Flores looks for in players, I mean, those are going to be very high boxes to check on the list. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how early and how quickly he acclimates to the system. I think it's kind of interesting. He played last year in Las Vegas for Patrick Graham, who is now the DC in Pittsburgh. Patrick Graham and Brian Flores are really close and worked together in New England a long time ago, so there might be some more familiarity than some might expect. And then I'd expect more than anything, like, to imagine him more of as a linebacker nickel type, and that's why I said it on social media last night. Like, I don't believe the Jamal Adams signing has any prediction value on what ends up happening with Harrison Smith. So definitely an interesting signing, and how they utilize him will be just another layer of the many interesting dynamics of this team besides the position that we will talk about every day.
Couple more for Alec Lewis, who, of course, covers the purple at The Athletic. You mentioned Harrison Smith. Any idea when that decision will be made? Do you get any sense that the organization knows what is going to happen? Where are we with the hitman?
Yeah, I don't think Harrison Smith knows, and I don't think the organization knows, and I think everybody currently is okay to, get to a place where both sides, but really specifically Harrison, has real conviction and kind of what he wants to do. I mean, I've said this, I probably said this last week with Dan, but the one thing about Harrison that shouldn't probably go overlooked is, no, at 37 years old, is he going to be moving around and hitting guys the way he once did? But I don't think you can minimize his role with the defense that checks the line of scrimmage and how much, like, his that has been his responsibility in recent years. So, I'm not going to be surprised if it's 2 weeks from now and you're filling in and you ask this question. I'm not sure if I'll even be surprised 4 weeks from now if that's how it goes. So I just think it's very much TBD, and the Vikings have been understandably okay giving Harrison space to decide what he wants to do.
Okay, last one for you. As the Vikings fans fill up TCO Stadium for practices in the next few weeks, how much will they get to see the number 1 draft pick? A status update? Is he ready to go? Is he on the PUP list? Where do we stand with Caleb Banks?
Yeah, if I was better at talking over people in press conferences, I would have been able to lob this one up to Nolan Teasley and Kevin O'Connell. Unfortunately, I get a little gun shy in those moments, so I wasn't able to ask this one. This didn't get asked today, but I just say this: I haven't asked anybody about it privately either. Coming out of the spring, it was my understanding that everything was on track for Caleb Banks to participate. Really from close to the outset of training camp. So until I hear otherwise, and I should probably fire off some calls or texts after this interview ends, I'm probably going to stick with that expectation. And I think it's an important one. Like I was going through it today. You've got Christian Darisol's availability. That's a fascinating conversation. You've got Blake Cashman entering his final year. Where does that situation stand? You've got Caleb Banks' health. You've got a lot of elements of this team that are uncertain and that will have to be ironed out over the next few weeks, running parallel to the quarterback competition heard around the world.
I lied. I have one more for you. Let's just do it in 30 seconds because I have several texts asking this question. KOC famously does not like to play his starters in preseason. The Vikings fans that are texting in today are wondering if he might change this year and we might see more regulars getting some snaps in the preseason. That's something you guys are prepared to ask, or any idea which direction that's going?
Yeah, definitely something that we're prepared to ask, and I'm just not going to be surprised at all if they're more willing to use those games as further opportunities to start to develop some optimism for the offense. I do think that was one. This is just me analyzing. I think that was a spot last year where they erred, and I would imagine that will be tweaked a little bit heading into 2026.
You're the best. We enjoy your coverage as always at The Athletic. Enjoy your time at TCO the next few weeks, and we'll be reading, Alec. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Talk to you soon. Looking forward to it.
Sounds good. Alec Lewis, read his stuff at The Athletic. I went a bit long. We'll have a shorty before Brett Robson joins at 4:35. Sinekin in for Bump on The Fan.
You're listening to Dave Sinekin in for Barreiro on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center. This report is sponsored by...
Give a shot to win bonus bucks to the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword is check. Keyword is check. KFAN.com. Keyword check.
All right, back with you at 4:26. This will be a shorter segment as I went long with Alec Lewis. Britt Robson joins next segment to talk Minnesota Lynx. They're back in action tonight. More on that in just a second. Brett Blakemore, how some days things happen right off the bat. It's going to be a good day, and some things just... So, Sunday, wake up, do what I always do in the first hour that I'm awake. I play the Wordle. I got it in my first guess.
Really?
It's the fourth time I've done it. It was the word grape. I've been using it for over a year. And when those 5 greens come up, and you just know you're going to have a good day. And true enough, Sunday was a good day. This morning, I'm in bed. It's about 6:45, and my phone starts dinging off the hook with texts. 6:45, a bunch of texts. Never going to be probably a good thing. It's my daughter, Allie, who sleeps in the basement. First text, please tell me someone's awake. Second text, freaking out down here. Third text, just woke up to a bleeping mouse crawling on my head. No! Next text was a picture. She actually captured it on her bed with a box.
That's the most impressive
100%
thing I've ever heard.
I would have fled the room, closed the door, and called pest control.
Yep.
She trapped it. Followed up with, I'm so grossed out and freaking out. And I get it. And I've been in this house for 15 years. It's only the second mouse we've ever had. We live like my house backs up to like marshland. Like it's kind of nice. The back of our house is like you're up north. You just see trees and like it's forest. It's just, there's nature, and mice sometimes get in. So we do have
Guardsy.
Correct. Guardsy's nearby too. And sometimes he sneaks in as well. But that's just not a great way to wake up. And I want to just credit Laughlin's Pest Control, the company we use, because they were there within a half hour. They got rid of the thing. They made sure that, we had set some, bait and traps and whatever. And sometimes they eat the stuff and they get out and die somewhere. The first one I found years ago was in my kitchen. It was like at 2 inches. It was tiny. No big deal. When it's dead, it's no big deal. When it's alive, it's just a whole different level. So I just want to tip my hat, not only to my pest control company, Laughlin's, but also my daughter, Allie, for trapping that sucker and not just fleeing like the rest of our household would, including her twin brother. I don't think would have had the foresight to trap it. He would have escaped as quickly as he could, as I would have. So that's how my day started today. It's gotten better since. I got to have barbecue for lunch. I mean, it got better as the hours went on. Correct, with double T. Lynx return to the post-All-Star game part of their schedule tonight. The Toronto Tempo are in town at Target Center. It'll be Lynx fans' first chance to see Fee for the first time at home. Of course, she returned in the last game before the break against Seattle, which, as you might expect. First quarter was very ugly. She was 1 for 7, kind of forcing stuff. And then she turned into Fee in the second half, finished with 24 points, 10 rebounds in 22 minutes in a close win over Seattle. So she's back. Found it really interesting. I'm going to talk to Britt about this next segment. Reporter for The Athletic, Annie Costabile, we're going to go with. It might be Costibile, but we're going to go with Costabile. She wrote a story about the trade deadline coming up this weekend in the W and a number of significant names that might be out there, including Kelsey Plum and Nafisa Collier. She threw her name out there. And I guess, connect the dots. The team has gone 21-6 without her. And then the Fee came back. They're now 22-6. And she signed a 1-year deal. And maybe we don't know, how she felt about the organization. She only wanted to sign a 1-year max deal. But she'll be a free agent after the season. So maybe the organization knows which way the wind's blowing. Maybe Fee has a different opinion. If she had one opinion before the season, now she sees this superstar point guard on the team, and maybe she feels differently. If she felt like she may want to test the waters, maybe she does feel differently now that she sees what Olivia Miles can be. But how shocking would it be if the Lynx trade, last year's MVP runner-up, Nafisa Collier, Defensive Player of the Year not that long ago? I think it's a long shot. I think this team is poised to do amazing things this season. And I think they need Nafisa Collier to do it. We saw when they play big teams like the New York Liberty, who have two bigs, you were just pining for Fee to be out there to compete with them head-to-head, knowing what she would mean and the difference she makes. But I just found it really interesting that she was thrown out there as a potential trade candidate. I've seen on my TikTok feed a lot of Olivia Miles stuff lately, and a couple that have thrown out nicknames for her. I don't know if any have taken yet. Do we have a nickname for Miles yet, as far as you know, in this town?
Not that I know of. Maybe there's some lurking around.
I've heard two from former WNBA players.
I know that.
She definitely cold. One was The Show, which is great. I mean, every time you watch her, it is a show. But this is the one I like. The Spectacle. Because she wears glasses.
Yeah.
And she's a spectacle. I mean, I love that. I don't know that nickname, maybe I'm wrong. Has it ever been used on an athlete?
I don't know. I might ask the AI overlords.
I love that. I think Olivia Miles should hereforth be known as the Spectacle. She has made Lynx basketball must-watch TV for me. In the past, I dip in, dip out, But I check my app every day. All right, when's the Lynx next game? I want to try to watch because I really enjoy watching her play. Even Double T Saturday finally had watched her for the first time. And he said, Davey, she's for real. He gave her the Double T stamp of approval. Not that she needs it, obviously. But for a guy who hadn't had a chance to catch her yet, this took him one game to go, oh, yeah, I see it. She does make everybody around her better. And how about the All-Star game she had, where she definitely deferred to the veterans out there, and I think she took like one shot in the first half. She ends up 5 for 5, 11 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Could have had the second triple-double ever. Couple shots went off the mark. She had those dimes in her back pocket, but her teammates could not convert. Just definitely opened up the eyes of those who had not had a chance to see her yet. In that kind of a practice game environment, she did everything right, which is what she always does. They're back in action tonight. We'll come back and we'll talk to Britt Robson about your Minnesota Lynx. Does he think Fee could be a trade candidate before the weekend is out? They have the toughest schedule left the rest of the way. Legitimate title contenders with Fee back. I know he believes it. We'll talk to him when we come back on The Fan.
Mall of America's summer mystery prizes. They're back. We're bringing them to you all summer long. You can come grab yours at KFAN events throughout the summer, or wherever you see our KFAN street team out and about. Then make sure to redeem them at Mall of America for fun prizes and big discounts. Full list of events, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
All right, back with you, 4:40 on a Tuesday afternoon. Dave Sinekin in for Barreiro today. Tonight we'll have Lynx basketball. The mythical second half of the season tips off tonight as the Lynx welcome in the Toronto Tempo. And to talk about the Minnesota Lynx, very happy to bring in one of my favorite guests, Britt Robson, who covers the Wolves at minpost.com and is now covering your Minnesota Lynx at Racket. You can find that website at racketmn.com. I wasn't real familiar with Racket, Britt. I've gotten to know it since I found you writing there, and I'm really enjoying that website. I'm glad you hooked up with that, and I'm sure you're enjoying covering this basketball team.
I am. Yeah. What's really fun about it is a writer-owned publication. So it's right up my alley in some respects. Young and small, but feisty.
Yeah, I love that. That's how we describe you. Young, small, but also feisty. Well, maybe 2 out of 3. That's not bad.
There you go.
So the All-Star Game's in the rearview mirror. The Lynx are back in action tonight, and obviously this will be Nafisa Collier's first home game in front of the home crowd. We got to see her watch the knock the rust off in Seattle. This team has been the best team in the league without her. Now she joins the team. They already got a bit of a taste of what she can bring, but with 16 games left and 11 of them against current playoff teams, they're going to need to be cohesive and figure things out with Fee pretty quickly. In your mind, how big of a challenge will that be to incorporate last year's MVP runner-up into a team that's already been steamrolling?
Well, I think it's a first world problem.
Yes.
In terms of the other night, her first game back, they allowed 75 points per 100 possessions with her on the floor defensively. She is an incredible defender, former WNBA Defensive Player of the Year in 24 all-league defense the last 3 years running. And they put the clamps on. Not a great team, the Seattle Storm, but they only allowed 31 points in the second half. On offense, it was a little hinky. Fee's usage, Nafisa Collier's usage was pretty high, and for whatever reason, I won't make it a causal effect, but Olivia Miles and K-Mac and
Natasha
the other
Howard.
folks, basically, you're shooting 2 for 16 in the half. Courtney Williams is the person I was thinking of. They collectively shot 2 for 16 in the second half, 0 for 5 from 3. That could just be normal variance, but it did kind of look like everybody was trying to figure things out in terms of touches and everything. The other day at practice, Coach Cheryl Reeves said that, we are who we are. The identity Fee will fit into the existing system. And I think that's the right impulse to make sure that you've got Liv Miles feeling like she can continue to do what she's been doing, which is pretty incredible stuff, even, for a rookie, for a veteran, let alone a rookie. So I think it's the right impulse. I think that her Collier's defense is going to be much needed. She's 6'1". In my last column, I likened her to Kawhi in terms of an NBA comp. And so I do think that that end of the floor will be improved. They're already second in the W in defense. They're third in the W in offense. And then we've seen Fee She's been the MVP runner-up 2 years running. You know, she can get you 30 if you need it. She can get you 12 rebounds if you need it. She can shut down the other team's best scorer a lot of times if you need it. So, like I said, really nice first world problem to have, because they were 21-6 without her, and now they're 1-0 with her.
Yeah, I mean, you got the 3 All-Stars, and kind of lost in the shuffle is what Kayla McBride's been doing. Is it 8 straight 20-plus point games? You know, maybe the points won't be as plentiful with Collier back, but she's kind of the unsung hero. I kind of liken her to the glue of this team. It feels like whenever this team needs a big 3, they just, as you say, send it to K-Mac, and she gets the job done. I feel like we've talked about the All-Stars and now Nafisa Collier, but let's not lose sight of what McBride has done for this team.
Absolutely. And one of the things, this is my first year covering the Lynx, as you know, and if you see a team game in and game out, not only, you know, watching them on TV, but, you know, going to the practices, the pregame, the postgame, and just getting a sense and really watching a lot more intently. She's got a competitive edge to her, another level when things are tough, that is extremely important and really subtle in its own way, but when they need a basket, as you point out, but also, you know, like when they need a play, like drawing a foul away from the ball, or they need a steal, or even like a heroic attempt at a steal that turns out to be a foul, but you go, boy, she's really digging. That's the kind of player she is. And I do think that what's going to be really helpful is that, you know, Fee and Liv Miles both have a tremendous amount of gravity, which is, you know, the new buzzword, of course. But for somebody like K-Mac, who is already really rapid fire shooter, gets off the shot very quickly, very accurately, been a 3-point shooter all her life, there's going to be just gads of opportunities for her to shoot open threes. There were before Fee showed up. And I think both Fee and Miles are unselfish people who will make that pass. So I look forward to her continuing. I would not be surprised if she finishes the season over 20 points a year, just 20 points a game, just because of the way this team is structured. I think it's kind of nothing but good, except for the fact that, you know, they don't have a tremendous amount of size, but they've been able to, you know, overcome that already before.
It's pretty remarkable where they sit, Britt. This is a team, as you know, that lost a number of key players during the offseason, whether it was free agency, the expansion draft. They didn't have their best player for the first half of the season. And in comes Olivia Miles to completely flip the script. I'd love to hear you talk about what you love about watching her. Maybe you've got an NBA comp that has come to you like Kawhi did with Nafisa Collier. But tell me what it is for maybe listeners that haven't really joined the Lynx bandwagon yet, haven't seen much of what we like to call the spectacle. What is it about her game that moves you?
Well, I don't have an easy NBA comp. You know, these things kind of basically come to you or they don't.
Yep.
What I really love about her game is that she brims with confidence, and in a way that if the best play in the half court is her taking the shot, she unhesitatingly takes the shot. She knows she's a point guard. She speaks first as being a point guard. One of the things that I found really telling about her is she grew up playing soccer at least as much as she played basketball. And she described playing soccer as angelic. And I thought that was really interesting. I didn't know what that meant. And so I asked her, this was like a couple of days after she made that description. And she said, well, when you're out there playing soccer, you're just kind of floating, you know, on the field. You don't have so many things to think about. You don't have so many responsibilities when you're playing soccer. And it showed me how much she puts on herself on the basketball court, what she does in terms of her game. And also the soccer experience just goes to show, you know, the patience you need to play that game well, the footwork you need to play that game well, the instincts you need. And I just feel like what we've seen from her, her shooting, first of all, is just much more accurate than anybody has a right to expect somebody who is a floor general to be able to also be a dead-eye shooter. And that's another reason why there's that gravity and why, you know, K-Mac is having such a good season. Also, her defense. You know, when she's on the court, the Lynx are allowing 99.9 points per 100 possessions. That's like right up there among the best on the team. And so there's that. The eye test isn't as kind, and I do think there's a little bit of variance in those stats. But she, at worst, is an average defender, and I would argue as kind of an above-average defender, which, given the fact she's got a great handle, she gets everybody involved, she wants to get everybody involved, she can finish at the rim, she can also shoot threes, she doesn't mind shooting mid-ranges, she's good in transition, and she's better than anybody expected on defense. And so now, we are talking about how to incorporate her and a runner-up MVP 2 years running in a manner that gets them both established. Almost co-equals. Obviously, it's still Fee's team, but Olivia Miles has quickly become, 1B in terms of the best team in the W right now. She is, at the very least, their second-best player.
We're speaking with Britt Robson. You can read his stuff on the Minnesota Lynx at The Racket. That's racketmn.com. He covers the Wolves throughout the season at minpost.com as well. Britt, I caught an article in The Athletic this morning by Annie Costabile doing a story on trade candidates with the trade deadline coming up, I believe, this weekend in the WNBA. She listed Fee as a potential trade candidate. The Lynx have never been shy about making big deals, like Sylvia Fowles, Dejanay Carrington a year ago. How stunned would you be? How likely, if at all, do you think it is that organization is considering moving on from their centerpiece, who's obviously in a one-year deal? Don't know how she felt about the organization when she signed that deal. Don't know if it's changed with Miles' presence, but how surprised would you be if that name was being shopped around a bit in the league?
I'd be extremely surprised, just because she's never played with a point guard like Olivia Miles before, and there is less of a burden on her in other aspects of the game. I think she knows who Cheryl Reeve is as a coach. She knows what Reeve can get out of different people. I think she would like to follow in the grand tradition that she has seen, this franchise. The Lynx arguably have the greatest cultural history of any team in the WNBA, and to become a part of that beyond just being the best player on the team 3 or 4 years running, to get a ring and to perhaps grab, not this year, of course, but next year or the year after, an MVP honor as a Lynx, and to be, put up in the rafters next to a lot of other Hall of Fame players. I think that's really the draw. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess there's always the possibility that she'd want to be with people that she helped start Unrivaled with, or she's got business interests that maybe put her in a different, town that would help her. Or, as you say, she's on a 1-year contract. On the other hand, every team is going to pay her, the most that they can pay her. So there's really not an incentive there in terms of finances. I'd be very surprised, simply because the situation here, I would imagine that most players in the W are interested in coming to Minnesota rather than leaving.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So 16 games left. It'll be kind of broken up because the FIBA World Cup happens in early September, so the league's going to shut down from August 31st to September 16th. So they'll have 12 games, then they'll pause for 2.5 weeks, then they'll have 4 games left. And we mentioned it, 11 of these games are against current playoff teams. They've got 2 each against Las Vegas and Golden State. All three against Caitlin Clark and the Fever. So it's an interesting final stretch, isn't it? Because the competition's fierce, and you've got this 2-week lull, and the fact that no Lynx players are on that FIBA team, I think Cheryl Reeve's excited about, because those players can rest up while the Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clarks of the world and Angel Reese's are playing overseas. So talk up a little bit about what that stretch run is like for you. Yeah, what do you think about it?
I think you're right. I mean, I think that rest will be helpful, and I do think that who knows how much there will be. Practices are allowed during that time. Whether or not they need to get on the same page. I do think this dozen game stretch before that fever break will be something that there'll be enough of a sample size that they'll know what they need. There's always injuries, there's always the unforeseen that you don't know about. But this team right now, I mean, Nia Coffey all of a sudden is not a starter. She is a great plug-and-play player. Other people, Dorka Uzachu was an all-star in her league over in Europe. She's a seventh person. Kosu has shown really good signs coming off the bench. Antonio Dallaire has quite a history in Europe. This team is deep. Yes, I think there's a lot of star power, especially in New York with the Liberty, and I think the Aces are always a team you have to pay attention to, with Asia Wilson on there. Clark and the Fever still have a lot to prove to be put in that conversation. But I would say right now, the fact that they Lynx have not won in quite some time, captured a championship, I think they're hungry. I think they're deep, and it will be fascinating to see how it goes. But I would put them right up there with any other team in terms of the ability to come home with hardware.
Before we let you go, Britt, I'd love to hear your thoughts on LeBron James signing with Philly. I don't think it's a shock that he ended up in the East and with a team that had a hole just like the Wolves did at power forward. But in your mind, does this elevate Philadelphia to the top of the East? Do they supplant New York, or are they even with New York? How does it change things from your estimation of the Eastern Conference?
It's really crazy. This is actually the worst time to ask people about rankings of teams because there is always that excitement about somebody being acquired, and you'd never know how it's going to fall. I chuckle every time, at the very beginning of the season, you look at what Vegas odds are and you make your own, 1 through 15 in each conference, and you look back, even like halfway through the season, you look at it and you laugh because you always grossly miss on at least 3 or 4 teams. Yes, I do think that Philly is greatly improved, and their starting 5 is the best starting 5, arguably maybe in basketball, provided everybody's healthy and they can get along. 2 big ifs. But then again, if the Toronto deal is allowed to go through and the chicanery of the Clippers and paying Kawhi under the table is ignored, then I think that Toronto is demonstrably better. The Heat have Giannis. The Knicks are coming back with a lot of momentum from what they've done. The Hawks have added some players that, their defensive contingent is going to be as good as anybody's. Even the Wizards have, with AD and Trae Young, you never know when that could coalesce. The East is a lot deeper than it used to be.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to come out of it, but certainly LeBron next to Embiid, next to Maxey and Edgecombe, and, just the list goes on and on. Jaylen Brown, I listed 5th just there. So, yeah, they're definitely right in the mix.
Yeah, all-NBA guy, by the way, is the 5th guy. Funny. Last one. Should Wolves fans be nervous if this is the roster when the season starts? Obviously, there's time for the front office to try to do something, but the fact that there is that major hole at the forward spot, how nervous in your mind should Wolves fans be if this is the roster when the season tips off?
Well, again, it's always I think it's a wait-and-see situation.
Yeah.
I think that would it be better if they could plug in a proven, experienced power forward kind of in his prime, or at the very least, 20s, early 30s or something? Yes. Trey Lyles right now might be the ostensible starter, or, McDaniels sliding up. Both of those have interesting possibilities to them, but you would not say, bingo, that's, there you go. Now you're a Western Conference contender. On the other hand, we don't know how much that backcourt will maximize each other. And Rudy, by the way, we don't know how much Rudy will get touches, and Rudy returning to the 4-out and him handling the paint situation that did him so well in Utah. There's always a million variables, and we don't know, what kind of work people put in over the summer. Ant always seems to come back with a new skill, and I would be all in favor of Ant being a much more consistent defender. I think if Ant is a consistent defender, then you can play a Jay McDaniels at the 4 and not lose that much, because I feel like McDaniels as a wing stopper is a bigger loss if he goes to the 4 than him being quote unquote undersized. I think a lot of teams can play undersized.
Agree,
so
100%.
A lot remains to be seen. I don't think that Finch is merely whistling past the graveyard when he says that they can match up and do a lot of different things. I think obviously they would like to put somebody in pen in that name rather than get out their eraser and change things every 3 or 4 games according to matchups. But, you had to give some to get some, and they have a very dynamic point guard now, 6'7", who has some injury problems, which is another factor. Overall, what I would say is I don't think they were going to beat the Thunder and the Spurs at their own game, and that's kind of the direction they were going in as things were going along. I think that what they've done is they beefed up. They've gotten a larger front court, a larger back court, a smaller front court. I think they're going to play a little more up tempo. They're going to emphasize offense a little bit more and rely on the old Rudy a little bit more. And I don't know what that'll be like, but I think it's about as good a chance of overcoming the 2 teams that are stacked and have a lot of draft choices than what they had last year.
Love catching up with you, Britt. Keep up the great work. We'll continue to read you at The Racket, at racketmn.com, and enjoy the game at Target Center tonight.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Britt Robson, just a great writer. Please read his stuff either at Min Post or in the Wolf Season or now at Racket. We'll pause here. The top 5 at 5 is next as Blake Moore joins the conversation.
You're listening to Dave